right. Good to have all of you here, my friends. Thank you so much for taking time to join me here. It's good to be with you. I missed you guys the last couple weeks that I've been gone. And now that I'm back, I'm thankful for the opportunity to spend some time with each of you. So, welcome to our Monday night live streams where we're going to talk to people who are considering Catholicism. A lot of people have been thinking about Catholicism lately. There's been this big push for people wanting to go to church and wanting to just figure out what life's all about. We've seen that in our situation in our church, and I've talked to lots of other people in the same way. So let's dig into it, my friends. The link is in the description, or not description, but in it's the pinned comment. If you're with me on the live chat, you can go up there and click that. That will bring you into a room where you can be brought on stage. So if you want, and by stage I mean this stream. So if you want to come on camera and share, you can do that. You don't have to. We'll go through questions here in the chat tonight, and I've already seen that we have a few, my friends. So let me just go ahead and try to work through some of them. And I want to thank you guys for being here. Next week, real quick, before I get too far into this, next week we're going to be joined by a young man who's got a pretty awesome YouTube channel. His name's Cameron Riker, and some of you maybe have seen some of his content. He's going to be joining with us next week to talk about his journey back to Catholicism, and it'll be a lot of fun. So he'll be here with us, and you can ask him questions as well. And don't forget, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Joe Heschmeyer's interview is going live on this channel. So lots of great stuff for you guys to check out. Joe's, of course, a great apologist from Catholic Answers, and I got a chance to sit down with him and talk to him about quite a few things earlier this year. So hope that you'll join us. Let's see if I can find some questions here. I saw a couple here in the midst of this. Where is it? Okay, here we go. From Mr. Duckweed. He says, how do I get over scrupulosity? I feel like I'm not good enough sometimes to be Catholic. Oh, man. Can anybody else relate to that with Mr. Duckweed? Can anybody else relate to feeling not good enough? That's fantastic. Because we all feel that way sometimes. It's not fantastic that you feel that way. It's just a fantastic question and comment, because I think that's just how it is. Sometimes we can feel that way. But what we have to remember, my friends, is that it's not about how we feel. It's about what God says. And Christ came for us that we could be saved. He didn't come to condemn, he came to save. And that means that when you are with him, that it's not about you being good enough. It's about what he has done for you and what he's doing in you to transform you and to make you holy, to make you into a saint. So you have to ask yourself, what do I feel like I'm not good enough for? Now, you can't say I don't feel good enough to be a Catholic, because, man, there's all kinds of things that it means to be Catholic, right? But what does it to be a good Catholic, right? Sometimes that's the bigger question. What does it mean to be a good Catholic? And the church really gives us a lot of help on this. It tells us, hey, look, we've got the sacrament of reconciliation where we can experience forgiveness. We can also talk about all of these different ways that we can grow in our faith. But if you're struggling and you don't feel good enough, first of all, just rest in Christ. Rest in Christ. Know that he loves you. And those areas where you feel like you're struggling, seek help. But never feel like you're not good enough to be Catholic, okay? Now, here's the deal. You might not be a good Catholic. I'm not talking about you specifically, Mr. Duckweed. But there are some people that just aren't good Catholics. Now, am I being judgmental of them? I'm not talking about specific individuals, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing. Every single person that's in that situation has the ability to change. Every single person has the ability to say, you know what? I'm going to step up my game. I'm going to step up my game. I think this is kind of an interesting thing, because whereas in a lot of places, people just, oh, no, you're good just how you are. Jesus loves you just how you are, and this and that, whatever. Okay, great. But he's also called you to grow in holiness. So if you feel like you need to get better, which we all do, that's a dirty little secret, Mr. Duckweed, is that everyone should feel that way. We all need to feel humble, like we have room to grow. The question is, what are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? It's not because God doesn't love us. It's because he does. So ask ourselves that question. What does it mean for us to grow in our faith and in our practice of our faith? And if you're struggling with something, then work to try to work out, as St. Paul says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. But never feel like you're not good enough to be a Catholic. Man, the Lord's called all of us. Remember what Jesus said, I came not for the righteous, but for the lost. All right. Why do some Protestants continue to say that Catholics worship Mary when we repeatedly say we don't? And why? I think it's hard to say why individual people say things, but I can kind of tell you just what I think about this, Sabrina. It has to do with they just don't understand. They have no framework in their religious experience for veneration or for a lot of things like that. And they also don't have a properly formed understanding of Mary and who she is. So when they see, and the saints, because when they see Catholics paying honor to the saints or to Mary or asking for her intercession, they don't have that framework. So they confuse that with worship. And you can talk about it till you're blue in the face, till they're blue in the face. And if they don't want to believe you, they just won't. So I think it's just some people just want to be in that camp. They just want that, and you can't help that. All right, Hawthorne, here's a question. How can you be Catholic when the scandals were so bad? Isn't the corruption too deep? The clergy's unhealthy. That's a great question. And here's the thing. Being Catholic could never be about what other people do. It can't be. We aren't Catholic because there are good priests, in and of itself, right? I mean, that helps. Don't get me wrong. It certainly helps that there are good priests, but that's not why we're Catholic. We're Catholic because of Jesus Christ. In the same way, we can't not be Catholic because there are bad priests. That just doesn't work logically. Now, I know some people say, well, like, is the corruption too deep? No, the corruption is not too deep for God to fulfill his promise that the gates of hell will not prevail against his church. That's just the truth. I mean, you could say the same thing about the apostles. There was corruption there, right? I mean, Judas betrayed Jesus. Peter denied him. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. And yet Christ's plan continues. So we don't minimize the scandals. We don't say, oh, they're no big deal. Of course, we call them out, but they will never have the power to take us away from our Lord, from our faith. We can't let that happen, my friends. Never, as Father Chris used to tell me, you never judge a church by its sinners. You judge it by its saints. And I think that's good. That's good. All right, my buddy Shano here. He says, since you aren't monetized on Twitch, I'd like to send a small monthly donation to keep your stream going on here. Because Patreon would be the best. Patreon's great. I am trying streaming on Twitch. I don't know if I'm gonna stay there, Sean, because I mean, I love you, brother, but it's a new thing. I did it once for a while before, and like literally nobody was on there with me. So I'm not really a video gamer, so it's tough. But we're gonna hang in there, man. I appreciate you. But you can always head over to YouTube and Instagram too for the Rosary Crew. But we're giving it a try. We're giving it a try. All right, let's see what else we got going here. I love all your guys' comments. Yeah, this is a good comment here from Nolan. He says, Jesus warned St. Faustina several times about feelings in her diary. Do not be guided by feelings because it is not always under your control, but all merit lies in the will. That's so true. I think that goes back to the first question about scrupulosity. It's easy to get that. It's easy to get that. But we have to remember, St. Paul himself said, look, if our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts. God is greater than our hearts. So we have to remember, it's not about how we feel about ourselves. It's about what God is doing, and what God says. All right, let's see here. Michael says, I've been drawn to Catholicism. When I research the history, I find the Orthodox Church intriguing as well. It seems the Roman Church broke off. How do you see Catholic versus Orthodox? Yeah, I mean, this is really the crux of it, isn't it? The church was united pretty much, for a long time, right? And then the East and the West split. The Catholics say that the Orthodox broke away. The Orthodox say the Catholics broke away. Really, it's kind of a dispute. But to me, where I come down on it, Michael, and I'm not some big expert on this. You got to talk to like Eric Ibarra, William Albrecht, guys like that are the super hardcore experts on this. And we could bring those guys on here sometime. They're friends of mine. But what I've noticed from watching the debates and from doing the things that I've seen, and again, I know some people will disagree, that's okay, is that the thing that is really the key is the Bishop of Rome. Does the Bishop of Rome have universal, supremacy and jurisdiction over all of the churches, not just the ones in Rome? Okay. Is that what we have going on here? And from what I can see, it appears that everyone believed that he did, right? That's what we saw. Okay. So you can find um, before the big split, you can find Eastern saints and councils that talk about the Pope having that authority. So to then claim, because I asked Eric Ibarra one time about that. I said, hey, what's the claim? And he said, the claim is that was never a thing, that no one ever claimed that. But to me, I just see it. I love the Orthodox Church. I love them. I think, all of that. But to me, the papacy is legit here. Okay, we have a guest here. So I'm going to bring in, hold on a second here. Let me do this. Boom. And then, oops, that's the wrong one. We're going to go here. Boom, right here. And we're going to grab our guest here. And his name is Eastern Thomas. Eastern Thomas, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you? How are
I'm
you?
great, man. Welcome to this chat here. I'm using a new program here to pull people in, so it's a little different. But so thanks for being here. What's going on with you, my friend?
Yeah, good. I've been pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain.
Yeah. Good.
So what's on your mind?
So I guess my question was, so I've been kind of studying Aristotle a little bit because obviously Aristotle has a big influence in a lot of the kind of scholastic Catholic thinkers. And I know one of the things Aristotle talks about, I think he probably talks about it a little bit more than even St. Thomas talks about, is sophistries. And the idea that, a sophistry is something that, um, you know, on its on paper sounds reasonable, but then you start to dig into it and you realize, oh, this really doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I was wondering, because it kind of seems like there's a lot of that in Protestantism today. It seems like there's a lot of sophistries where Protestants will just make claims and they make sense on paper, but then you dig deep into it. Like you mentioned the papacy. The papacy is a doctrine I think is subject to a lot of sophistries. People will be like, well, I don't need the Pope. I just have Jesus. When, the papacy teaches that the Pope is subordinate to Jesus's authority through the principle of participation.
Right.
So I guess my question is, do you see that a lot with a lot of sophistries, and how do we combat them? Because I know one of the things Aristotle says is that sophistries are very tantalizing and very attractive to people, and they're easy to trap people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there, Thomas. I think the whole idea of things that you put on paper that don't really play itself out in real life very well. I run into that all the time when I'm talking to people about Protestant versus Catholicism. I'll give you a couple examples. And you can let me know what you think. But when people say things like, um, they'll say things like, "You just need the Bible," you know,
Right.
you just need the Bible. Just read the Bible; it'll tell you everything. It's all that you need. Just the Word of God. You go, okay, well that sounds great on paper, okay,
Hmm.
but when you really dig into it, it doesn't address a couple things. It doesn't address why we need the Bible, like what it is. It doesn't talk about like what the Bible even is. And it also doesn't deal with how we settle disputes about what the Bible says, differing interpretations.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, you just need the Bible, just read your Bible and it'll all figure it out," I think that's a good example. Um, another one might be when people say, this is the one that I've been dealing with a lot lately, Thomas. Maybe you have too, but when people say things like, "Well, you Catholics, you believe that you have to earn your salvation, and really Jesus paid it all. You're adding to the
Right.
finished work of Jesus on the cross." By what? By insisting that that people have to obey Christ, or that they play some role in receiving the grace that God gives to them, So, and when you really push on that, you discover that really everyone believes that to a certain degree. So
Right, right, right,
an example I would give you would be something like, you know, people say things like, well, you just have to trust in Jesus. He paid it all for your salvation. But then
right,
it's also like, okay, well then does that mean that you don't do anything? Does that mean you don't have to ask for forgiveness? Does that mean you don't? So why do you have to have faith, right? Why do you have to do that? Like,
right,
believe in, to me, you can just find people that say that, but they also at the same time put their own things on that they're trying to, that they tell you have to do. Does that make
right,
sense?
right, right. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. So how do we fight against that?
Well, okay. Here's what I think. I think the way that we fight against that is we just follow those threads. Okay, we follow those threads. We say, okay, let's follow where that leads. Let's be consistent and apply that argumentation to both sides of the
Yeah.
issue. And then what happens is people usually realize that it doesn't hold up. You know.
Right, right, right,
So
right,
I'll give you another example real quick. Is like when someone says, "Oh, Christ is the only mediator," right? So you shouldn't ask Mary for intercession. Okay,
right,
Christ is the only mediator. Therefore, you shouldn't ask Mary for intercession. That's, first of all, that's two different statements. Okay, Christ is the only mediator. Yes, we agree with that. He's the only one that mediates salvation for us. But the second statement that says, therefore, you shouldn't ask Mary's intercession, that's a completely different topic. So you can say, okay, well, then let's
right,
follow that through. Then should you ask for anybody's intercession? And they'll say, well, of course, you
right,
pray for one another. He said, well, why? Christ is the only mediator.
right,
So
right,
you
right, right,
you apply that back on top of what they do, and then usually what you discover is they don't want to do that.
right,
Does that make
right.
sense?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too is I think a lot of Protestantism too thrives on aesthetical sophistries as well. Like what you just mentioned with the don't ask Mary for intercession. Christ is the only mediator. I mean, that's something that just aesthetically is so easy to set up as, oh, if you get anybody else, you're distracting from Christ. It's so easy to aesthetically make it look like that, when you really dig deeper into it, it makes no sense when you compare it against the virtue of charity, and the overarching theme of the gospel.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's 100%, man. I think that's great. Well, thank you for
Yeah. Of
jumping on, dude. I appreciate it, man. You doing well? Everything good in your life?
course. Yeah, everything's going good for me. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, we got some questions I'm going to get to, so thank you for jumping on, man. It's been awesome talking
Of
to you.
course. You
All
as
right.
well. Have a
Talk
great
to you again,
day.
man. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
You too.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. That's pretty cool. Let me just do one thing here. Boom. All right. All right. I got a couple more questions here I want to deal with. That's cool. All right. Let's see here. Lisa says, I was raised Baptist and married to a member of Church of Christ. I'm struggling that I'm walking away from my heritage. How do I get past the culture I was raised in to become Catholic? That is a fantastic question. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, Lisa. When you change churches to become Catholic, you don't, it's not just like, as George Costanza, or as I think it was Jerry Seinfeld said to George Costanza, it's not like changing toothpaste. It's a big deal. And it's not just like, moving from one church to another church. It's like changing universes. It's hard. It's hard. And I'll tell you this, Lisa, it takes time and it takes humility, because you might walk into things and feel like uneasy, and you might have this desire to say, oh, I can't do this. This is too hard. But I will tell you this, you just got to stick with it. You've got to stick with it and trust that you're being led into the truth and that God has a plan for you in that to help you get over those things. And the best thing I can tell you is this: learn the why behind the what when it comes to these cultural things that you don't understand. I had to do the same thing. I'm still doing it. When you walk into mass and it's like, why is it so different in here? Why does the priest do that? Why do they do it this way? There's the good thing about Catholicism is there's a reason for everything. And when you find out what the reason is for some of those things, it generally makes you feel better. So I would just say do that and pray and offer up that struggle that you are experiencing right now in the midst of it. And I promise you, as you do it, the Lord's going to give you graces. He's going to open up things to you in a powerful way. So I'm going to just encourage you with that. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, let's see. Tommy says, Keith, I've read Charlie Kirk was close to a conversion. Erica is Catholic. I read that he had questions about marrying Dr. Theodore the Pope. Any insight? Here's the deal. Everybody's speculating about this. And I think that we just need to just leave that be. We don't know. I've heard some people say Charlie was this close to becoming Catholic. I've heard other people say, no, Charlie, said he could never become Catholic. I have seen pictures that I hope are real of him attending mass. I don't know their situation. So I think it's dangerous for people to comment on that as though they know something on the inside scoop, right? So we don't know. We don't know. We just know that Erica was raised Catholic. I saw that she was raised Catholic, but then she left the church. But then I heard that she's coming back, or that she has been back. But these are just things that I've heard. I don't know. So I don't hang my hat on that. I just pray. So I think it's dangerous for people to. Everybody wants to do like the whole "he's ours, these ours." I think we shouldn't be doing that right now. So that's my insight. All right, let's see here. Erwin says, woohoo, I made it. Yeah, you did. All right. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Okay. It's not like changing toothpaste. It's like changing teeth. Okay. I'll go with that. Okay. Catholics aren't always as warm and friendly. Have patience with us. Yes, that's true. That's true. We have a reputation, but you know what? I know a lot of awesome Catholics that are super friendly. Okay. Janelle, she says, after 23 years, I'm about to get my marriage validated with my husband that was raised Pentecostal. Any suggestions to navigate through this? Wow. Well, I'm just excited that you're doing that. That's amazing. So I would say this, the way that you navigate through it is to give thanks and just enjoy and experience the graces that are going to be coming your way. Open your eyes, Janelle, with your husband to this new reality of this sacramental factor of your marriage that you're entering into. It's going to be incredible. So I would just say rejoice, and whatever the church teaches, just obey it and be ready. It's going to be awesome. But way to go. I'm excited. I'm proud of you. All right. Let's see. Jacqueline says, I'm a cradle Catholic. Stopped attending mass as a child. Spent years attending the Mormon church. I love the people and structure, but it didn't feel right. How can I learn about Catholicism? Well, God bless you, Jacqueline. I'm so glad that you're trying. There's a lot of great resources to learn about Catholicism. I'm going to give you just a couple. First of all, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of bad stuff on YouTube, so you got to be careful with that. But one of the things that I would recommend to you is to start going back to mass, and just try to live as a Catholic if you're ready to do that, right? If you're ready to re-engage, if you were raised Catholic, you could go to confession and just be like, okay, I want to learn about this. But probably the best thing you could do is start working through the catechism, learning about the church, learning what the church teaches. Father Mike Schmidt's Catechism in a Year is a great podcast that'll walk you through the aspects of what the church teaches. Estelle, my wife's been going through that lately, and she's just on fire for it. She absolutely loves it. And she's not a big consumer of content. So the fact that she loves that podcast is pretty fascinating, because it's just really blowing her away. So I would say that, Jacqueline, get to mass, absorb it, ask questions, learn, and start digging into the catechism. I think that would be a great thing. But great question. I'm excited. I'll be praying for you on your journey. Okay. Barefoot Animist says, I've been drawn to Catholicism since boyhood, vocation to becoming a Franciscan friar, but I don't understand the purpose of adoration of the Eucharist. Okay. Well, I will tell you this. The purpose of adoration. Okay, so here's a follow-up question for you. Do you not understand it, or do you not agree with it? I mean, it's not hard to understand. To understand is to be in the presence of God, because we believe that the Eucharist is Jesus. So to be in his presence brings us so much peace and so much grace and so much clarity. So really the purpose is union with God. That's what it's about. Now, that's maybe different than where you're saying, it doesn't do that for me or whatever. That could be different. So I would say the purpose is union with God and devotion to Him and to show Him love. So I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to do that. Um, awesome. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Orthodox. All right. If Peter was the first pope, then why was the early church not centered around the Roman episcopate? Well, I don't, that's probably debatable on that, whether it was or not. I kind of have a feeling that it was, but it depends on how early you go. Some people say, well, the Christians in the book of Acts were in Jerusalem. Well, the Christianity didn't start in Rome. It wound up there, right? As the church grew, Peter and Paul started that church in Rome, but originally, before that, it was Jerusalem. So I guess you could say that. I don't think the Roman Church claims that Christianity began in the city of Rome. So Peter wasn't in Rome initially, that, but that's where he died. So that's why the church has the successor to Peter as the Bishop of Rome. So I think that's why. But I don't think the claim was ever that Christianity, started in Rome. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your question. But if Peter was the first pope, then why is your church not centered on Roman episcopate? Okay, so I mean, he was. Yeah, I believe that he was the first pope, and I think even Orthodox believe that he was the first pope. They just disagree with what that means. What does it mean to be the pope? But I don't think people disagree that he was the first pope. So I think it's pretty clear, though, when you look at history, that you can see that the church fathers like Irenaeus, like writing in 180, talks about the succession down from the Church of Rome. I mean, this stuff is there. You just got to try to figure out what it means. And that's where I think our disagreements with Orthodoxy are, is like, okay, we believe that Peter was the first pope and that he had this preeminence. It's just a question of what that meant. Okay, we got another guest, my buddy. Let's see here. Let me get you in here. Whoops, hold on. Let's go here. And let's go here. Boom. Edwin, how you doing, buddy? Can you hear
Sorry,
me?
how are you? Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing, buddy?
Good, brother Keith. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. What can I do for you?
So, not necessarily well, I do have some questions. So, it's a pleasure talking to you. You, alongside a lot of brothers here on YouTube, have been able to help me discern Catholicism since I guess February. I returned back to the Catholic Church. So, my upbringing was I was baptized and I was not confirmed, received my first communion as a child. But soon after, my parents left the Catholic Church for marital reasons,
Okay.
and then they found their faith in Pentecostal evangelical church, and since then I was raised Pentecostal or Protestant. Married my Catholic wife almost 10 years ago, and
Nice.
since yeah, she's a hardcore Catholic. She told me I'm not going to convert to your church, to your religion, and I don't expect you to convert to mine. But it was a lengthy process, and I just recently it hit me pretty hard. The grace of God came over, and I believe it's the Holy Spirit just moving around the United States or in the world. Um, and he came to me um, and finally was able to discern Catholicism over a lot of questions. And I'm sure you reading or seeing your videos and hearing you out, I'm sure me and you had the same questions, just Mariology, um, the Pope, I mean, Eucharist, everywhere, you name it. Um, I guess my question is, I'm trying to discern whether I should, after I get confirmed, if I should reach out to see if I could join, I guess, some type of catechism so I could start teaching people as well. I just feel pulled towards it, and I don't know really know who to talk to. I mean, do I just grab my my father, the priest, and just be like, hey, I want to help out, or is there a process?
Well, so a process to become like a catechist or something.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think yeah. I mean, probably that might be different depending on your parish and stuff. But I think you just got to slow down, man. I think just one thing at a time. One thing at a time, and just absorb being a new Catholic. Absorb what it means to be in the church, and when the Lord has led you into that place where you feel like you want to do it, that's going to be something that you handle at like a local level.
Okay,
You know,
awesome. Well,
yeah, because I mean they're probably gonna need you for something. People on fire for the Lord, new converts on fire for the Lord. It's like okay, but we got to take time to grow in our knowledge and our experience. Um, but I think yeah, there could be a plan for that. But that would be something like up to your local priest.
gotcha. And any tips for just gaining knowledge? Just anything you recommend?
Yeah, man. I mean, the only there's no shortcuts to this in Catholicism. That's what I've learned. Is it's really hard to become proficient in everything because there's so much. So you just have to like pick kind of different areas that you want to grow in and want to learn in, and just dig in, man. Ask a lot of questions, get around a lot of people, read a lot, watch videos, make that your hobby. Make that your what you do for leisure. Make that what you do for reading, and you'd be amazed at what will happen in your life and how fast you can grow in your knowledge. But it does at the same time. It does take some time to grow, but that
Mm.
desire is there. I can see it in you, man. So just nurture that. Fan that into flame and grow in that. And I think great things will be in store for you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, brother.
Awesome, brother. Well, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for jumping in.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you, my friend. All right. We have got Nicholas coming up. Nicholas, you are here with us. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well. Good to meet you. I've seen and heard of you many videos. Um, to the last guy, I don't remember your name, sorry.
Edwin.
I do want to say, Edwin, I want to encourage you. For myself, my wife, when we were dating, was a Eucharistic minister
Okay.
in our church, and then she ended up continuing that, and then I got into it, and then around the time 2020 or so, we kind of faded away from the church. But our second child was about 2 years old, and we came back. This was 22, maybe around
Okay.
2022, something like that. Um, we started getting more involved, and now we're both Eucharistic ministers. I'm an altar server, a lector. I assist with catechism,
Wow.
manage the church website and social media. So it's like you, from my experience, and encouragement to you would be to plug in, right? Parishes run on limited funds. They volunteers are essential. So just find a way to plug in, reach out, and like Keith, you said to him, just learn and soak up. You're a sponge. You need to you need to soak
Hey,
up,
buddy.
and I got my
Oh,
little
look
one
at
here
you.
too.
That's beautiful, man.
Um,
I love it.
right. So yeah, just be a sponge. But Keith, I'm sorry to take up too much time. But
That's
my
okay, man. That's
main
great. Everything
question,
you said is great advice, and I love the fact that you are an example of that to our brother Edwin, who I hope is still listening. Edwin, if you're
yeah,
listening, jump in the chat and let us know that you're with us. But I think that's great, man, that you shared that.
yeah, and I would say, you know, be a sponge, soak up, listen to audiobooks, listen to videos. Like instead of filling your life with the world, um, fill it with God and godly
Amen.
things. And it's a struggle, but and I put in the chat, Keith. My one question is, this theme has been coming up to me lately of you're the only Bible some people ever read. And there's a
Hmm.
country song that just came out about that, but it's is that idea that you are the example, right? And some people don't read the word, they don't have time to do that, or they don't make time to do it. And so your example of being a Christian or a Catholic, uh, it's the only example that some people will ever see. And so how
Edwin's
you
there.
represent,
Yeah.
you know, it's important. Keith, I know you do the rosary, and
Mm-hmm.
so my main reason for getting on was to talk about that or
Okay.
touch on it a little bit. Um, I hear a lot of people talk about like Gabby. He talks about pray the rosary and 4 times a day and all this kind of stuff, and it's a beautiful practice. But my question to you would be, how does one make it intimate and not so much like rote prayers or memorized prayers, but have this like intimate experience that so many other people seem to have? For me, it just seems like I'm just saying it to get through it for the
Yeah.
sake of saying the rosary.
Oh man, great. That's a great question. I bet there's a lot of people in the chat that can absolutely relate to that 100%. Um, and what I would say is, to me, it boils down to two things, maybe more. The first thing is being consistent with it. Um, and then also really meditating on the mysteries. I think that's the key more than anything, is really just taking time to really consider what the mysteries are when you're praying through the rosary. And sometimes, when people are just like announcing the mysteries and just going through, they're just cranking on stuff. I think it becomes difficult, right? So slow down, take
Yeah,
time, and really let yourself, and I know people talk about like mental prayer at times. Gabe does a lot of that too. Let yourself go into those mysteries and really consider them, and
right.
understand what they're about, and that will help you, in that. Because like one of the things I heard someone say once, and I think it's kind of true, is they say that the Hail Marys are almost like the background to the meditations on the mysteries, and that's not to distinguish them, but it's to help you as you're meditating on them, to be joined with the Blessed Mother in these mysteries so you can be contemplating the life of Christ.
Yeah, that
So,
and
does that make
we were
sense?
listening to. Yeah, it definitely does. We were watching a video the other night that Gabe had posted about a lady in Africa with, the crazy wars and genocides and stuff, and she was speaking about the rosary and
Mm-hmm.
how she did it, and it was such an intimate process, and and so I was like uh, thinking about it too, and it's I feel like I run through it a lot of times, and it's not what other people describe it as, and I feel like I'm missing out,
Well,
and it's
okay.
like,
Let me say one thing about that real quick. For everybody that talks about, they have like these incredible God moments with the rosary where they're just like, angel feathers are falling from the sky and they feel like they're levitating.
right,
I can promise you this: 90% of the rosaries they pray, they don't feel like that.
yeah,
Those moments come to us, but that's not the norm. The norm is gutting it out, man. The norm is like, okay, I'm praying and I'm it's a battle, and I'm going to stay focused and work at this, and trust God, and be disciplined and diligent in this. And sometimes we don't get that grace of that amazing feeling, okay? But we still do it. And we don't do it because of what we get out of it. We do it because of what we're offering. And that's the thing that I think is so
mhm,
important about a prayer like the rosary. It's not for you, Nick. It's for the Lord. So the question shouldn't
right,
be, okay, well, how am I experiencing this? Like, what am I getting out of it? How do I feel? How do I feel? Think about it more as, what am I offering? What am I offering to God in this time? And that will help us,
yeah,
because if we think about it from the standpoint of, well, what am I getting out of it? How do I feel about this? Then it becomes about us. And then
yeah,
if we're not rocking with it, then we can easily just set it aside. But if we realize
yeah,
that this is something that we do as a devotion to the Lord, then it's more about like, okay, what am I giving rather than what am I getting? And then what you discover is, eventually you're just like, wow, I'm getting so much more out of this than I ever was when I was focused
It's,
100% on myself. It's just like the same thing with going to mass. You know,
yeah.
if you go to
And
mass and it's
I
like,
never,
man, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes there's distractions and you don't feel good and you can't hear the priest and this and that. And you're like, what did I get out of that? You know? Well, okay. If that's your mindset, probably not a whole lot. But if you thought, hey, I went to worship the living God, then it's not about what you got, it's about what you gave.
yeah.
Just a
And I
perspective.
think a lot of times, yeah, a lot of times I'm trying to do the rosary on the way to work because I have half an hour.
Yep.
And, but am I giving God what he deserves in that time?
Mm,
As I would my attention when I go to mass, right? Have I prepared myself to give that situation to God, to give those prayers to him? Or am I doing it to just get through it for the sake of saying I did the rosary today?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
interesting. You
that
brought up
makes
Gabe.
sense.
He talks about praying the 4 rosaries, okay, a day. And I was with him a few years ago for a couple of days, and I asked him about that because I did the 4 rosaries over Lent one year, and I was like, man, that's a lot, dude. That's a lot to like really slow down and do it. And he's just like I said, what's your advice? He said, make sure one of them is really good. You know, make sure one of them. And what he meant by that was, it's okay on the way to work to offer that prayer. It's okay to do that. It's okay to do it while you're mowing your grass, while you're offering that up. You're going to be doing something with your mind. Focus on that. But make sure at least one of those rosaries is just that you're not thinking about other things, you're not doing other things. You're just fully present, you know? So do what you can. Do the best you can. Offer that as a sacrifice to the Lord, and what you'll find is maybe there'll be a time where you go, okay, been praying this on the way to work. Hey, it's better than just listening to, commercials on the radio, you know? Um,
Definitely.
but then maybe you'll get to a point where you go, okay, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to get up 15 minutes earlier every day and pray in the quiet, or I'm going to do this at night after the kids go to bed and whatever, you're going to journey through that, but don't worry so much about how it feels or how you feel right now. Just focus on the mysteries, be consistent with it, and think about what am I giving versus what am I getting on it.
Definitely. That's been the best advice I've gotten so far. So
Dude, all right. Well,
it's
I'm happy
about,
to hear that.
yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your
Awesome,
time. It's
brother.
been a
All right,
pleasure.
man. Well, you take care and enjoy those kids.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I'll keep
God bless
watching.
you, brother. Okay, take
Bye.
care. Take care. Okay. Linda, you're up next. How you doing?
Oh, I'm surprised. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm doing really good. Um, I I want to make this as short as possible because there's so much I could say, but let me just I'm just gonna pick this one little piece up.
All right.
Okay, so um, I would be specifically talking to um, those that are already Catholic and are starting to waver in their faith because they don't have answers to
Mhm.
our Protestant brothers and sisters um, on, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Well, that's not in the Bible, and that isn't either. And because of the lack of good catechism coming up in my time, I'm 59 years old. It kind of started when when I was, I'd say, like 13 years old, where the catechism became just watered down. We were trying to be ecumenical, and so we lost some essence there. Okay. And so, kind of in defense of myself, who also was I was very much one of those people. I didn't have an answer for that. I was just, oh, you go to mass, and then I'd be like, oh, I don't get much out of this, you know. And you're thinking about the Protestant churches with the guitars playing and the people jumping up and down, and it didn't look anything like the mass. And so I started to question my devout Catholic mom. I'm sorry, Mom, God rest your soul, for what I said to you. But she did always say, ask questions. Always ask questions. It's good to ask questions, but be ready to listen to the
Mhm.
answers. and
Sure.
then you make a decision, you know. But I asked her about we worship Mary. We why are we believing, you know, Christ is in the Eucharist? Okay. All the stuff that's coming on this side from, you know, my Protestant brothers and sisters, you know. Okay, so I started on a journey, and like I said, I'm only going to pick up. I'm going to pick up the biggest thing I can think of first. The very first thing that they can go to, very first. Um, and I'm speaking to all of those who even get one little thing that comes up to them about a tugging to the Catholic Church list. So it's one question, just something that's going, you know, I don't know. But they have, 'cause it's such a journey. You know, once that block came down, okay, that's solved. Then that's solved. Then it's because they have questions. And again, I think it starts, I don't think I'm wrong about this. It starts with, well, that's not in the scriptures. That's not in the scriptures. That's not in the scriptures either. Well, there is a book. I hope it's still in print, but it's fantastic. You have all your answers from the scriptures. It's so laid out so perfectly. And it's called Unabridged Christianity by Father Mario Romero. While I was waiting, I was trying to find my book, but I probably gave that one away, and I got to get another one again. It's just so good. It's all in there. And then, you know, if I have a few more minutes, because see, I went down, and this is how I did it. This is what did it
Well,
for me.
we have like 1 minute because I got some other people that are jumping on here. So
Yeah.
tell us the
Well,
1 minute version.
study the early church history by the mouth, what was written that they wrote. St. Origen, Chrysostom, all the earliest ones, St. Clement, our third pope, St. Linus, who are both mentioned in the scriptures, by the way.
That's
Our,
right.
our first
That's
pope
right.
after St. Peter. That's very important. You see the apostolic succession. Read the early church fathers, actual writings, not some modern day person's twist on it telling you what they're saying.
That
No,
is a
read
great
what they
point.
said.
Yep, that's a
William
great point.
Jurgens, William Jurgens' version is the best because that's what it is. You can read it. You know, you read them for yourself.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's a
I
great point.
and I went to I did actually travel to Rome. I did go to the catacombs, and let me just say, there's archaeological evidence for our faith. And it is
Amen.
scrawled on those walls where those earliest Christians who could have grabbed Christ's robe in their day were buried there. And it's about praying for the dead and the Mother Mary. It's all over there. You can see it. You can't make that up. It's
Amen.
there.
Amen. We were there as well
There you
this
go.
January and we saw it. So that's great stuff. So
Yeah.
Jurgens uh, work on the church fathers,
William Jurgens,
and then what was the first one
early
you said
church
again?
father.
Unabridged Christianity.
Unabridged Christianity, Father Mario Romero.
Awesome.
Yep,
Awesome. Well, thank you
there you
so much for
go.
those recommendations. I think they're great ones. Awesome.
I think people will be real happy to get those nuggets.
I agree. Well, thank you, Linda. God bless you.
You're welcome. Bye
All
bye.
right. Take care. Okay, Janelle and Neil, you guys are coming up right now. Here we go.
All
We got a
right.
couple here. How we
Hey.
doing?
Sorry. We say hey and our dog barks. But thank you for having us come on. Coco, come
Sure.
here. So I was the one that said that my husband and I are getting our marriage convalidated in the Catholic Church.
Wonderful.
I'm a cradle Catholic and my husband was Pentecostal. Come here, Coco. Hold on. Here you go.
Let's see Coco. Hold on. What we got going
All
on here
right.
with Coco here?
So Coco's here.
Oh, Coco's a big old labradoodle.
Standard poodle.
Oh, standard poodle. Okay.
But thank you for having us come on. And we were driving our college daughter to school, and one of your podcasts were on, and my husband was listening to it, and he
That's good. That was really good.
So I just wanted to be supportive of my wife, and she's taken this really seriously. And I grew up obviously Pentecostal. My dad was a pastor in a
Nice.
Pentecostal church, and so it was a pretty easy process because I was baptized. So we met with the priest, and
In Stillwater, Minnesota.
yeah, and we've gone through the process, and so now we're just waiting on a date.
Mhm.
I'm excited.
Nice. Well, I want to tell you, Neil. So you are a Pentecostal, right? Or are you becoming Catholic as well?
I'm still Pentecostal.
Okay. So Janelle, you're Catholic.
I was a cradle Catholic,
You're
and
cradle
then
Catholic. You guys got
when
okay. Okay. So
when we
here's
got
what I want to say.
married, okay,
Neil, God bless you, brother. Thank you for honoring your wife with this decision and doing that for her. That is awesome that you're doing that. There's a lot of people I talk to who are in Janelle's position, and their spouse is just like, no way, I'm not doing that. And it puts a lot of strain on the Catholic spouse, the person who's wanting to become, more engaged in their faith.
I wanted to receive the Holy Eucharist.
Exactly. So Neil, thank you for doing that for your wife. That's an awesome move. So God bless you for that. And I just
And
want to just encourage you both. I think that you're going to experience God gracing you in a powerful way, and man, that's just so exciting. So
Well, thank
praise the
you.
Lord.
I will add that we have two daughters, and our youngest daughter just joined the Navy, but before she um,
Went to boot
went
camp.
to boot camp, she went through OCIA and she got
Okay.
baptized. She got
Wow.
baptized.
She
And
goes to
she goes
she's
to
in
mass.
school now. She goes to mass every week.
Yeah.
It's something her and her mom can talk about.
I love that mass is universal, so it's the same
Yeah.
all around the world. I love
Yeah,
that, except of course the homily, but I love that.
I know. That's one of my favorite things about it is when you travel around, it's like, it was always so hard to try to figure out like where to go to church and what that was going to be all about. And when you go to mass, you just walk in and you're home. Anywhere you go in the world, you walk into a Catholic church and you're home because we're part of this family. So it's amazing. Lacey's asking the question. She's, I don't understand what he's doing for her. Someone explain. Let's explain. So Lacey, what's happening here is when you have one person who's a cradle Catholic, who's that means you were born into the Catholic Church. You were baptized as a baby or whatever, and then another person who was a Protestant. You get married, right? The church allows that under the condition that the marriage is blessed, like is done in the church. Okay, so a lot of times people get
The
married,
sacrament of marriage.
the sacrament of marriage, right? That they get married outside the church. This is what happened to us too. Like my wife in the same situation. She was cradle Catholic. I wasn't. We didn't get married in the Catholic Church, but when I was converting, we had to do the same thing, and it was great. Like we had an awesome experience. So Lacey, that's what's going on. Is Neil is saying, even though Neil is not becoming Catholic, he's saying, okay, let's go ahead and get this done in the Catholic Church. Now, that doesn't mean that Neil has to become Catholic. So just understand what that means. He doesn't have to become Catholic, but the priest is going to basically marry them under his authority, and the sacrament will be given to them. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a
I
beautiful
do
thing.
get her question though. It just seems like such a small ask to like why. What's the big? It's like what's the big deal?
It
Like
is a big deal.
I'm just saying that. Why would anybody not
Well,
do
yeah,
that?
I think sometimes what can happen is there can be things that make it more complicated. Like for example, I don't know any of your situations or whatever, but let's say you've got a couple. Let's say Neil, you were married 3 times before you were with Janelle. Okay, the
Yep.
Catholic Church doesn't believe in divorce,
Right.
so what the Catholic Church is going to do is going to subject you to this process where they're going to look into your previous marriages to see whether or not you actually, according to what the church declares marriage to be, that you actually entered into that. Which you'd be shocked to know how many times it's not. I mean, someone getting married at at a, you know, casino in Vegas without God at all, the church doesn't really even consider that a marriage. So it's like, so a lot of
That's what
times
we
though,
did.
We did not.
but the church has to
We
go
did get
through
married
that
in Vegas,
process.
though.
And that can be a tough process. So for the spouse who's like, I don't want to do all that, I don't want to dig into all that, they might just say, forget it, I'm not doing it. Or sometimes they hate the Catholic Church and they're mad that their spouse wants to become Catholic or grow into, you know, this. So sometimes people are just difficult, you know, they have an issue with it. So, but look at this. Okay, so Lacey says, "Thank you. That is awesome. I'm thinking of converting, and my husband wants to stay being Protestant." And you know what, Lacey? Look at these two. He can do that. But just to see if he'd be willing to get your marriage convalidated in the church. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge deal, you know.
Yeah.
So good for you guys, and I'm excited
Thank
for
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Awesome. All right. Well, let us know how it goes, and we'll be excited. Awesome. All right, my friends. So cool. So cool to be able to go through this stuff. Okay, I know I haven't really been looking at these questions here. So we do have a super chat that I saw come in, and I always get to the super chats. So let's look at this one here. The Optimistic Fan Club. Thank you for the super chat. Prayed for a sign of my faith. The next day in an antique store, I see a cross ask to see it. Turns out it's a rosary without the beads. Clerk says she feels the need to give it to me and does so for free. So, sure. That's awesome. Pray for this. Pray for those signs. God will give them to you. You'd be surprised. I had an experience one time where I was going to go buy a crucifix to wear around my neck or something, and I went to go do that, and as I was getting ready to do that, I felt the Lord saying to me, "Don't do that. Someone's going to give you one." And that night at a Bible study at my house, a dude walked in and said, "Hey, I felt like the Lord was calling me to give this to you," and he gave me a crucifix. So how cool was that? You know, pretty amazing. So yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Okay, I have some old questions here that I saw that I favorited. So maybe these people aren't here anymore, but I'm gonna jump through this anyway. Um, Mikey says, "What's the best way to come at a Protestant friend that is disappointed with you deciding on Catholicism?" I hope you're still with me. The best thing that you can do, the best way to come at a Protestant friend is just to understand where they're coming from, have patience with them, love them, and show them by example. Show them by example that being a Catholic is going to make you a better Christian. You're going to have to show them versus tell them. They're not going to believe it. They're going to be like, "You're crazy. What are you doing? You know, you shouldn't become a Catholic. This is insane." You're going to have to show them that they're that they don't understand. And that'll only happen by your example before them. So I think that's super important. Okay, a couple more. And I saw you guys dealing with this one. Timothy Ward says, "Please explain why missing Sunday Mass is considered a mortal sin." Okay, first of all, you don't need to yell at us. Don't do the all caps thing. There's no scriptural support for this. Okay, I'm just messing with you. But let's put it on there. I don't know if Tim's still with us or not. I saw you guys talking to him about it. But no scriptural support. That's, you know, okay. You're not going to find scriptural support that says missing Sunday Mass is a mortal sin. But what you will find is the commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Okay. And you're also going to find the scripture that says that we shouldn't forsake the gathering together. And you're going to find Jesus giving his authority to the church who talk about, you know, why this is important. Now, the question is, why would you miss Mass? Okay. Why would you miss Mass? And what that's going to boil down to is probably something having to do with idolatry, choosing something over than worshiping the living God. Now, I hope you would agree. I don't know if you believe in mortal sin or not, Tim, but, you know, if anything was a mortal sin, it would be worshiping something or choosing something over God. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what happens when we willingly, knowingly choose to not worship God at Mass as a Catholic, right? Okay, cool. I know. He's just says I'm still here to get attention. It's kind of a joke. Everyone does the all caps thing, but that's really what I'm going to say, Tim, is that it's the why behind the what. right? It's the digging into, why would you do that? You know, why would you not do that? And remember the qualifications for something to be a mortal sin: grave matter, full knowledge, and then, you know, your full consent given to that. So it's really, does it to those conditions, you know? And you could make the case, if someone didn't know that it was a mortal sin, if someone wasn't aware of it, you know, are they culpable of that? You know, that's a different deal. But it's a big deal to worship the living God, to put him first, and to set aside that time to celebrate his resurrection and to honor him. And if we choose to not do that, right? If we willingly say, I'm not doing that, then what does that say about where our hearts are? So I hope that helps. I hope that helps, my brother. I appreciate that. All right. And then I saw, let's see here. Daxter said, and I know you guys answered this one, I guarantee that. Is it okay for a non-Catholic like myself to pray the rosary and ask for the saints to pray for me? Answer, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. You do that. 100%. 100%. It's okay for you to do that. It's awesome for you to do that. So we appreciate that. Okay. Oh, this is interesting here. Sunday Mass requirement has parallels in Leviticus 23, where holy convocations were requirements. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Jews, they had requirements as well. You know, they had mandatory feasts that they had to participate in as well. All right, we're gonna pray for you also, Aaron. Praise the Lord. And okay, let's see here. You bet, brother. You bet. My pleasure. My pleasure. You know, we want to worship the Lord. All right. I'm gonna see what other questions we got here, my friends. I'm trying to dig through some of these. Remember, let's see here. You can always hop on if you want to jump on screen with me in the pinned comment, but just be ready because that'll happen. Sometimes I remember when we first started doing this. Remember when like someone was in the green room, I click on it, and they're like, "Ah," and then they couldn't believe it. So that will happen. That will happen. But you don't have to do that if you don't want. But God bless you guys. All right. And if there are any questions that I didn't get to, feel free to ask them again. Because when I have a guest on stream with me, I'm not even looking at the chat, so things can fly by. And then remember too, Cameron Riker is going to be here next Monday to talk about Catholicism as well. Okay, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to hit this again for our buddy Pox at Luke's. I'm a recent convert. How do I deal with scrupulosity, especially with OCD? Okay, this is important. Remember, scrupulosity is when you feel like you're not good enough, when you feel like you're like, oh man, something's wrong with me. Go to confession. And here's the thing, like, are you scrupulous about things that you've already confessed? Because that's a problem. If you've already confessed and you've received absolution, you got to put that stuff out of your mind. If it's stuff that you're currently struggling with, then get some help with that. And I think sometimes even just putting in that effort to try to overcome some of those sins will help us in that. All right, this is a question we're going to deal with here. Michael Chalfin says, any fear of the Catholic Church becoming more liberal? Yeah. To a certain degree, yeah. Now, here's the thing that's great about Catholicism. Whereas our Protestant brothers and sisters, they don't have these guardrails of orthodoxy of like a defined doctrine, most of them. You know, it's and certainly not doctrine that can't change. I mean, we've seen a lot of that, haven't we? Where, you know, even my former denomination, the United Methodist Church, went completely liberal. And they had church teaching that was pretty orthodox, but they just didn't stick with it, and then they ended up changing it. That's not going to happen in the Catholic Church. So I don't have a fear of the church itself, like changing its teaching, but I have fear of Catholics in the church becoming more liberal. So remember, we have guardrails. We have a promise from the Lord that's not going to get too crazy. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that aren't falling away from that. Okay. Let's see here. Daniel says, lifelong Baptist. I spent the month looking into Catholicism and have learned most things I was told about Catholicism were false. I now have a deeper understanding. I'm not there yet, but the doors. Praise the Lord, man. A month, you're just getting started, dude. But yeah, look into those things. You're going to be blown away when you look into that, Daniel. It's awesome. Keep at it, man. Keep at it. Okay, let's see what Philip says here. Keith, How to not lose my peace and faith when I see so many higher ups in the church dead set on promoting anti-Catholic beliefs, no kneeling or receiving. Yeah, this is our issue, Philip. We talk about this here on the stream sometimes. We have to remember God's put us here for a reason, and all people who want to be faithful to church teaching have to be the loudest voices. We have to be the biggest force in the church. And yeah, there are higher ups that are doing wacky things, but we have to stand strong. We can't, the worst thing that we could ever do is walk away, because if we walk away, they win. So we have to double our efforts when we see wacky things happening in the church. We have to do penance. We have to pray. We have to step up. That's the bottom line. So don't lose your peace. It's going to be tough to sometimes not lose your peace, but never let it take away your faith, my friend. Never let it take away your faith. That's important. All right. Okay, here's a good question. If the term Roman Catholic is not official, why Catholics use this term in the name of their schools and other institutions? Is the term acceptable now? Well, you do run into some people who don't like that. I don't have a problem with it, Roman Catholic, because I'm a Latin Rite Catholic, right? So to me, that's who I am. That's the rite I'm in. Like an Eastern Catholic, they are in communion with the Bishop of Rome, but they're not necessarily called Roman Catholics because they might be Byzantine Catholics, or whatever. So I think it's kind of one of those things where if a person's in the Latin Rite, meaning that they're Roman in their culture and ecclesiology, then I think it applies. But some people don't like that. It was kind of a derogatory term for some people, but I think it's fine personally if that's what you are. That's my opinion. Okay. All right. Some of these questions aren't making sense to me because I didn't catch some of the things. Okay. If you don't assist to Mass on a Sunday, remember you can't receive the Holy Eucharista. Okay. You don't assist at Mass. I'm not sure what that means. All right. Yeah. See what happens sometimes I feel like if I grab a comment, I'm like jumping in the middle of people's conversations. So, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. You bet, buddy. You bet. All right. Father Chris Alar says, don't leave Jesus for Judas. Amen. Thoughts on the charismatic movement in the Catholic Church? I don't know that I have thoughts on it, really. I went to a healing mass once, a charismatic thing, and I think there's a place for that. I think things can get a little wacky sometimes with certain things, but I think I don't have like I'm not like, no charismatic Catholics. Like, I don't think we can do that. But does that mean that it's always done without mistakes? Probably not. But I don't really see a whole lot of that where I am. So it's not really like on the forefront of my life. But I did have a pretty powerful experience at a healing mass when I was Protestant. I went to one and it was pretty cool, man. And I believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit. I believe that that's a thing, praise the Lord for that. So, okay, let's see here. The Catholic churches in my area required a birth certificate for OCIA. It's a normal process. A birth certificate? That's probably a baptism certificate is what I'm guessing. I've never heard of them wanting a birth certificate before. I know you do need to have proof of your baptism if they're gonna do that. And if you haven't been, they'll baptize you, but they want to know whether you were baptized or not. And they don't just take your word for it. They want to see some proof on that. Okay, Donovan says, do you feel there's a lack of male leadership and teachers in the church? Yeah, I do. We have male priests, which is kind of interesting, but at the same time, I think that if you go to most churches and you look at who's really leading things in the church beside the priest, like who's running the parish, who's doing all this, I think there's a lack of male leadership. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think sometimes a lot of men are busy working for they're working to provide for their families. So, they may not have as much time available to do some of the administrative things around the parish or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying, but yeah, I think you see a lot more women stepping up to leadership than you do men. And I think that us men need to do better when we can. Okay, let's see what this one says. Could you defend Christ Church against the heresy of Western Orthodoxy? I ask that because they are coming. I don't even know what that means. Western Orthodox, as opposed to Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah. Could I defend it? I guess I'd have to know what it is first. I don't know, but I would imagine that here's the thing: the defense against one thing is usually the same defense against another thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, isn't it? Okay, he means Eastern Orthodox. Oh yeah, we've been dealing with that for a long time. We've been dealing with that for a long time. And you know what? What do you mean they are coming? You mean to my stream, or what do you mean like over from the other side of the world? The Eastern Orthodox I know in person are not like we hate the Catholic Church. They're not like that. Sometimes it's just like the YouTubers and the online people that's their jam. It's just to hate on Catholics. But the Eastern Orthodox people I know in person are lovely people, and I don't feel like a sense of rivalry with them. So I don't know, but it's happened to me before. I mean, I've been flamed by Eastern Orthodox before online. I mean, it's happened, but whatever. I'm used to it, I guess. It's just one thing after another sometimes. All right, let's see here. Okay, yeah, I think I saw this question earlier. Is there any reason why it's okay to take the bread and wafer, only take the bread and wafer at Mass and not the wine as well? My parish only does the wafer. I was curious. Okay, yeah, this is an interesting question. And this was something that the church dealt with, a long time ago, was what, are we lacking if we do one substance and not the other? And the way that the church came down on that was to say, there's nothing wrong with you receiving the wine too. I mean, lots of churches do that. So it's not like the church forbids that. But the church has understood that all of Christ is found in either of the substances, in either the wine or the bread. So if you take one, you're not lacking something because you didn't get the other. Now, you could argue that, well, it's more full experience with the bread and wine. And sure, I'm not going to disagree with you in that. But the reason why it's okay to just take one is because we believe that Christ is fully present in both species of bread and wine. So you're not like lacking Christ in that. That's the answer of the church. Okay. And I hope that makes sense. But remember, like some people think, oh, why does the church forbid that? They don't forbid that. You can do that. Well, I see it pretty often. What's the best resource to educate and overcome resistance to Marian dogmas? Great question. Great question. I can't give one best resource because it depends on the person who's giving the resistance and what their deal is. I saw my buddy Austin from Gospel Simplicity. He had De Montfort's True Devotion to Mary the other day, and he was kind of walking through that book and looking at some of the things that were written in there, and he was like, "Dude, this is hardcore. I don't know about this." And I understand that. There are a lot of things written in that, and the way it's written that would be scandalous to people who don't understand. So, if someone's struggling a little bit with Mary stuff, I don't hand them De Montfort's book. What I would hand them is probably, the Catechism, where it talks about these things. So, and it explains Mary's relationship. And I know De Montfort does the same thing, but sometimes it's wrapped in language that's hard, 17th century French or 18th century French, whenever that was. I think that was that time. Translated into English, there can be a little bit of a disconnect sometimes. But I always think that the Catechism is the best resource on stuff like that. The other thing I would say is, Scott Hahn wrote an amazing book, and so did Tim Staples. You got Hail, Holy Queen, and you've got Behold Your Mother. And those are two books that really dig into the Bible stuff behind that. And also William Albrecht does a lot of stuff on his channel. He did a thing with Dr. Kappas about a stream with Matt Fradd on Pints. It was called like Every Objection to Mary Answered. And it was like super long stream, but I would show them that. There's a lot of things in there about that as well. Okay. All right, let's look at Luke here. Do you have any difficulty finding community fellowship after becoming Catholic? Seems like Protestant church service is more of a social gathering, and after Mass, people just dip out. LOL. Yeah, I this is common, Luke. It can feel that way sometimes. Now, some Catholic parishes are more focused on this than others, are more, wanting to have this community aspect of it. And others are just like, no, we don't have time. We're just here to do the sacraments and do our thing and go. So I think it is a little more difficult sometimes because in Catholicism, the focus is really not on the community of people like being best friends and having their whole social life revolve around the church like it is sometimes in Protestant churches. Because you got to remember, in these Protestant churches, oftentimes they're trying to be all things to all people in their church. They want that church to be the number 3 spot in your life, right? You have home, work, and then church. And they want to have a church version of everything, right? They want to be a one-stop shop. Most Catholic parishes don't operate like that. They're like, okay, we want to give you the sacraments to build you up, and then we want you to go into the world and live out your faith. We don't want everything to happen within these walls. So it is tough. So what you have to do, Luke, is you have to be a little more intentional about finding community yourself and figuring it out and getting involved, and maybe work a little bit more than you'd have to in other churches to do that. But it's there, man. And when you find it, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it than when you find it. So, all right, my friends, we got time for just a few more here, and see what's going on. Yeah, Jello says, Scott Hans, Hail Holy Queen did it for me. That's great. Okay. Oh, you guys are very generous with your kind words. I appreciate that. Is there a church teaching forbidding attendance of weddings that aren't Catholic? That's a complicated question. I would say yes and no. And again, I know that there's like, I don't think there's like some dogma that's come down from the Pope on this, but there's like, what the church says you should and shouldn't do on this. Definitely, like if you look in the catechism, right, especially like the Baltimore Catechism, it talks a lot about this. If you have someone who has left the Catholic Church to get married outside of it, then they're operating outside. If they're a Catholic who's like, I'm getting married outside the Catholic Church, man, forget this, that's not good, or of course, any kind of same gender thing, the church doesn't want to do that. So you have to be really careful with that. It depends. Is the person Catholic? Are they both people Catholic? Is one Catholic, one not? Did they, did someone leave their spouse to go marry this other person? Right. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. So I think if you have any doubts about specifics, you should talk to your priest about that. But generally speaking, I think that, if you have 2 Protestants who are getting married, I don't think that, and there's no like people leaving other people for that or whatever. I don't know that the church has a teaching that says you can't attend that. But if you have a Catholic who's like, oh, I'm getting married outside the church, I don't care, that's a different story. Someone who's like a practicing Catholic says, I don't want to get married in the church. I'm doing this anyway. It's tough stuff though. It certainly is. Okay. Daniel says, question, would the church, and that's very helpful, by the way, when you said question, and then you said your thing. Would the church accept me if my wife chooses not also convert? Yes, the church would accept you, brother. The church will accept you. So 100% yes. 100% yes. Is there a lack of focus on it? Not in my church. My church, our priest this Sunday, that's what his whole message was about the need for evangelism and how we should do that. Okay. All right. You guys are doing good stuff. How long have I been Catholic? Almost 8 years in October. I converted in 2017. So I'm coming up on 8 years, man. 8 years. That seems like a long time, but it feels like it just got started. I feel like I'm just dipping my toe, dipping my toe in the water. Okay. In our calendar for OCIA, it said they would do a mini exorcism. What is that? It's kind of scared me to see that coming. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, mini exorcism might be like, just like a general prayer over everybody. I don't think they're going to like put you in a room and, sprinkle you with holy water just by yourself. I don't know. So ask the question though. And you got to like go to them and say, okay, what do you guys mean by this? But I think it's kind of more probably like a group exercise, I would guess. So yeah, no need to be scared. It's just some prayers. Yeah. Thank you, Jello, for doing that. All right. Okay. Aaron says, I used to have youth pastors from the local come to my high school. Why do priests not do the same? Well, I mean, you could probably imagine why a priest would probably not want to go to a high school. I mean, maybe some of them do, but they've got Catholic schools that they're going to all the time. So most priests are like involved heavily in Catholic schools, so they're doing that. So they go to high school, this is maybe not yours. But you know, maybe they do sometime. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, you guys got a lot of stuff going on here. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. 8 years ago, I was 19. I was a lot older than that, man. A lot older than that. Okay, a lot of chatter happening tomorrow. What's the Catholic views on that? I don't know what you're talking about. Chatter. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Not really sure. But I can tell you this. There will be an awesome interview with Joe Heschmeyer on this channel tomorrow morning. He's an apologist for Catholic Answers, and that's going to air at 10 a.m. And I hope you guys will join me. All right, let's do one more question. Might as well pick a real good one here. Do Catholics and Muslims believe in the same God? This has been the topic a lot lately. I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and you know, there's a passage in the Catechism that talks about this, and there's things that have been said by popes and by different things, and other people are like, you know, wait a minute, what is it we talking about here? We thought we only believe in Jesus. What are we saying? That all, you know, roads lead to God, all this kind of stuff like that. I'll tell you this. Catholics, like here we see Catholics believe in the Trinity. Okay, so no, and I would say this: Catholics and Muslims, like, it depends on what you mean by believe. And I hate to be like the whole Bill Clinton thing, you know, it depends on what the meaning of the word is. Believe in the sense that they have the same knowledge of truth and give their assent to that? Absolutely not. No, because we believe in the Trinity. You know, they reject that. So there can't be the same sense of yeah, one's as good as another. But to, you know, so I would say no, we don't believe in the same God. Now, here's where the distinction gets a little bit hairy. If you were to use the word worship, okay? Do Catholics and Muslims worship? And, you know, I think there's the Catechism where it says they adore the one true God or whatever. That's a little bit different, because now you're not talking about knowledge, okay? You don't have to have full knowledge of something to worship it or to adore it. You do have to have, like, so like when you say believe, if that means like, you know, having this full knowledge, I would say no. But are there Muslims and Jews who worship the same God we do? You know, you could make the case, and the church has made the case, that can be a thing, just without the full understanding and full knowledge of God. Okay? But we can't confuse that. This doesn't mean that people can be saved through these false religions. Okay? It doesn't mean that. But if someone looks to the sky and cries out and says, the creator of the universe, whoever you are, right? Who are they crying out to? They're crying out to the same God that we are. They just don't understand who that God is. So in that sense, you could say they are adoring, like, I worship you, I want to know the truth. They're crying out to God. And remember, right? Jesus had these conversations with people where he talked about, like, to the woman in John chapter 4 at the woman on the well, you know, you guys believe this, you guys believe that, but salvation has come from the Jews. Okay? They come from the Jews. So Jesus is making that statement. Okay? And then you got the Apostle Paul, who is going around at Mars Hill, and he sees these pagan idolatry things. And he says, I saw there's one that says, to an unknown God, what you proclaim as unknown, I'm going to declare to the truth. So he's trying to take their desire and their cry out to the one true God and say, look, now I'm going to declare more to you on that. I think that's what the church is getting at when it talks about this commonality, but it's not saying the same thing as, oh yeah, you know, it's all the same. And I think that's the issue that some people have. You know, all right. So I think that's what we're getting at, you know. And, you know, okay, Phil says, that's why I chose the Orthodox. Well, there's some guys in Orthodoxy that have said the same stuff. So you got to be careful with that. So when Orthodox like to come out and say, well, you Catholics, you have wacky theology over here, you do this, that's why I'm Orthodox. You know, there have been statements made by Orthodox patriarchs that basically say the same exact thing. Now I know what the argument is. Well, we don't have to listen to them. Well, again, now we're getting into a whole different deal. But I appreciate that. I appreciate you. All right. All right. One more here. Funny, this popped up in my feed. I'm a longtime Protestant that stopped practicing and have recently come back and exploring Catholicism, was raised Catholic. Okay. Well, we are glad that you are here, David. It's no accident. And I hope that you'll come back next week too, when my buddy Cameron's going to be here. And if you want to check him out ahead of time so you can kind of see where he's at, go over to his YouTube channel. Just Cameron Riker. I think it's Riecker. He's got a lot of good things to say, and he's going to join me. He'll be here with us live, and then we'll take questions from people as well. Don't forget, tomorrow we got Joe on Catholic Feedback. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I've had a great time with you guys, and remember, we're gonna try to do this on Mondays. I try to do it when I'm in town, but I travel a lot, so there'll be times when it doesn't happen. So make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel, that you like the channel and all that kind of stuff, because it really does help put things out. And as we do that, maybe the Lord will help more of us have our eyes open to things. So thank you guys so much for being here. And remember too, we also pray the rosary each and every day on Rosary Crew with Keith Nestor on YouTube. So you can jump over there and pray with us. It'll be awesome. We do a Bible study on Tuesday nights called Unpacking the Mass. So that'll be coming out tomorrow night too. So lots of stuff happening here. And I want to thank those of you who do support us on Patreon and Locals or through our website. We really appreciate that. You guys make all this happen. I don't bang that drum a lot because I don't want to be focused so much on all of that. But it is really important to us, and it's very helpful. So thank you guys for doing that. There are links in the description if you're interested in helping out with some of that stuff as well. But God bless you, my friends. I look forward to being back here with you next week. And until I see you again, may the Lord bless you and take care, everybody. Have a great night.